It's 8 o'clock, time for Wayne County Commissioners to go over the agenda for today. Invocation, I think Mr. Darty's taking care of that. Danny Grant Sr. will be giving the invitation this morning. Mr. Camardi will do the pledge. Mr. Wood, you want to kind of go over the agenda? Would you mind doing that for me today, please?
Okay. On the public hearings, we've got the proposed amendment to the Wayne County zoning ordinance to allow communication towers as a special use in the light industry zone. As y'all recall, we discussed this at the last meeting. This would allow communication towers in those zones, but as a special use. And so on your agenda this morning, you'd have that proposed amendment. And then at the end of your meeting, if that passes, at the end of your meeting, then you would sit as the Wayne County Board of Adjustment and consider a request to issue a special use permit. Okay. And the county is the applicant on that special use permit for the new tower, in the western part of the county.
I have a map of it.
And there is a map of that.
I'm going to put it up on.
Okay. You recall, this is the site at the, that we're looking at purchasing from the Methodist, I guess it's called the Disaster Relief Organization there. So we're looking at buying that. So those two things are connected. The first is you have to amend your ordinance to allow communication towers in that zone, but only as a special use. So what that means is you would consider each case on its own merits each time it comes up. And then later in the meeting, if that ordinance has been adopted following the public hearing, then you would act as a Board of Adjustment on the first one, which would be the special use permit.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Is it my understanding that one's sitting as the Board of Adjustment, and if we agree to allow for a special use permit, then that's all action that needs to be taken?
We should be okay there as long as everything goes through on their end on acquiring the property, yes.
But the Board of Commissioners didn't have to take any
No,
further
you don't have
action.
to do anything else, because once the county has received the special use permit, we're ready to go.
Okay.
Once we close on the property. Okay, we have two rezoning requests, and at this point, I'm going to ask Chip Crumpler to come forward and go over those with you.
One, remember, we canceled that.
You're right, one's canceled.
The first one is a request to rezone 3337 US Highway 13 South, and the from residential agricultural 20 to village district and village district to community shopping. That request has been repealed by the applicant due to some site conditions that's going to make it unsuitable for their development. So the applicant is asking that we remove that from the public hearing. The second case is to rezone 5413 US Highway 117 North in Pikeville from residential agricultural 20 to community shopping. And that request is from a Mr. Gary Hinton. Property is located north of Pikeville, just outside of its jurisdiction. It's from a Mr. Gary Lee Hinton on behalf of NC Sound, and it's a 2.14 acre parcel in the Pikeville Township. And they are asking for it to be zoned from residential agricultural 20, which is, residential in nature, to a community shopping use. The property is owned by Amy Van Price and is located north of Pikeville on the west side of US 117, close to the Charles B. Aycock High School. And I think that structure was built prior to zoning being in place, and when it was zoned RA20. So it was a doctor's office previously. It is bordered on the east by a house, and on the north by farmland, and on the west by the CSX Railroad, and on the south side by an animal hospital. Like I say, it is in Charles B. Aycock High School zoning area, and it's 160 feet southwest of the school property. And they are proposing to build an accessory use also onto the rear of that building for storage. Current zoning does not allow for offices of this type, so that would be the purpose of the request.
Question.
Yes, sir.
It's not gonna create any, driving hazards there, getting in and out of school? I mean, y'all looked at it, I'm sure, with DOT.
It would not.
Okay, just wanna be sure.
Did this
It's
come,
real
be-
close to the school.
did this come before the planning board, or?
Yes, sir. Planning board recommended approval. Yes.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor?
This is outside of the town limits of Pikeville?
Correct.
That's what I
Yes, sir.
thought. Okay.
Chip, while you're up there, we're now under the adjustments to the agenda. Mr. Chairman, we have three, and one of those is Gander Lake, Section 1, final subdivision plat. So, Chip, if you don't mind, if you go ahead and cover
Okay.
that.
Let me grab my stuff here. Gander Lake. It's a subdivision on Pikeville Princeton Road. Let me get to my paperwork.
Is that the one at Johnson County line?
Yes, sir. On Johnston County line, 30 lots, and it is completely developed. Gander Lake, Section 1, actually. Developer is Goose Lake Development and Rudolph Hooks. Triangle Civil Works is a surveyor. It's located in the Buck Swamp Township on Princeton Road. There's 30 lots. The property is not in a zoned area. It is inside of a rural enclave area on the growth strategy map. There's 30 lots with 3 new interior streets. The subdivision is developed. It's got all the streets in place, utilities are in place, hydrants, electricity. It went before the Wayne County Planning Board at its last meeting, and they approved it. There's no conditions on the approval. And I think he has some lots pre-sold and is requesting this be added to our agenda so that he can get this recorded and transfer those lots.
Any questions, Mr. Mayor?
This, there's a lot more lots than to be in this total subdivision.
There are yes, there are more lots in the preliminary. This is just section 1.
Yeah, this is the one that we approved, what, a couple of years ago?
Probably so.
Yeah.
And it's, all the lots are accessed by internal streets. There's no driveway access for an individual lot out to Pikeville Princeton. It's all serviced by internal streets.
Okay, so they don't need any turn lanes or anything
No,
like that?
sir.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Doherty?
If, we just gave preliminary approval some time back, is that
For
correct?
the entire development, yes, sir.
And as they complete the actual construction, then it comes back for a final
That's
approval?
correct.
Okay.
On a section-by-section basis, or sometimes they come back for the entire thing, depends on how they want to do it. You know, this allows for them to build it, sell some lots,
Sure.
and then come back and, help pay for it that way.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? Thank you, Chip.
All right.
So we'd like to add that to the agenda.
Yes, sir. Be fine.
And then the other thing we have is 2 budget amendments, and Pam, if you'd go over those, please.
We actually have David Ward and Alan Lumpkin coming from the tax department to explain the last one. The first one is number 497, Debbie Jones with the Social Services Department. She asked that we walk this one on because we're going to need this before the end of the year. It's decreasing program reimbursements by $10,699, an increase in direct service for 4E and 4B adoption assistance programs. This is where they need additional money in these adoption programs to pay out, and they're able to reduce another line item in their budget. The reason we're bringing it before you is because it's above $5,000. The next one, this is a good deal. It's actually, the budget amendment is for the fire departments. And we're going to let David and Alan explain it to you a little more in detail. The county received $217,000 from the state of North Carolina. Several years ago, they began collecting an additional 3% on delinquent vehicle taxes. This was to support the establishment of the new tax and tag system. There was actually $16 million left in the state fund for this, and they distributed it back to the counties. We got 217, and then we had to do a calculation to figure out what percentage was the fire departments and what percentage was the counties and the municipalities within Wayne County. The budget amendment is only for the fire departments because the municipalities, when we receive the money, run it through a payroll and then send it right back out to them. The fire departments, we keep on our books, as you know, in our special revenue funds, and this is their portion, the $9,224.08. This is a walk-in because this came in. We were able to figure this out yesterday. That's a lot to tell you.
And we'd like to get it done. This is the last meeting of the fiscal year is why we're doing it, because we'd like to get it done this way so she doesn't have to book it as a receivable during the year and then have to do a lot of work on after June 30th. But we literally got informed of this 2 days ago, and it's taken a while for them to work through the formula because we had to go back through 8 years of records and determine what percentage everybody's was on those various fire departments. So this is quite a spreadsheet actually to get to this point. But yeah, the good news is we're getting the money back. But the state basically charged that extra money, and this is the fair method for them to disperse it. And we feel like this is the fair method for us because everybody would have gotten those percentages had the state not done the money, right?
That's correct.
And Ms. Holt, looking at this spreadsheet, looks like the $217,000 is a lot of money, but it looks like the bulk of it's going to the municipalities.
And yes, including Wayne County.
Ma'am?
Including Wayne County.
Well, including the county.
Yes, sir.
That's
So-
right.
Only
so-
9,000 of it's going to the fire departments.
Okay.
And that's spread out, over 30 fire departments.
I mean, very low, I mean, I'm not saying they won't appreciate it, but it's, if they're in debt, this is not gonna get them out of debt.
I'm still not understanding where the money came from. What's the source of this?
The state charged an extra 3%.
3%.
In other words, when you paid your vehicle taxes, they charged an extra 3%.
If it was delinquent.
If it was delinquent. So only on delinquents did they charge it. They used that pot of money to develop the software for the new vehicle collection system. And they overestimated how much money they would need. And so they had about 16 something million dollars left over now that they've implemented the new system. So then the question is, well, what do we do with that? Well, they basically applied that. They had basically applied that, as Pam said, to delinquent vehicle property owners. And so they're basically returning that back to the county of Oregon for our use.
Well, I suppose my big question, if the total that we're being refunded was $532,000,
No,
No, that's not the
217,000.
217.
217 is the total
Right.
amount.
Right.
That's being refunded. How much of that is actually going to Wayne County?
163,402.
163,000.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Then the municipalities, we will not run it through the income statement, which causes you to have a budget amendment. Those just go to a payable, and we send them out. That's the way that their taxes for we collect taxes for the municipalities, we pay them out. they'll run through a balance sheet account. But the fire departments, because we have their funds on our books, we have to use a budget amendment and run them through the income statement. So that's why the 9,000 is coming before you.
And the tax department is able to determine how many delinquent taxes they had by fire department, by year for 8 years going back through this, and for the municipalities, and for the unincorporated part of the county. So that's how we were able to arrive at these percentages.
Y'all are mighty good. That's all I can say.
We will have to give the credit to the tax department on this.
The tax department did an excellent
They
job.
came up with 3 different scenarios, and this was the most accurate way to do it. And it actually took in, like Mr. Wood said, 8 years of collections. And so we're actually dispersing it back out on actual percentages.
And this is just 3% delinquency on just vehicles.
Right, they took the-
Not all delinquent taxes, just vehicles.
Just
Just
vehicles.
vehicle delinquent taxes. So for instance, if you lived in Mount Olive, you would have owed taxes to Mount Olive. Well, that's probably not a good example because they don't have a fire district. Well, yeah, it's
Yeah, they
fine.
do.
In a fire district, it would have owed town taxes, fire district taxes, and county taxes.
I'm just amazed the state gave it back to us.
It was a total of 16 million that was divided among the 100 counties.
I agree with you. That's why we need to put it in, we need to put it in the bank,
We need
clear
to-
the check.
It's
Yeah,
in the
we've already
bank.
cashed the check now.
It's in the bank. That's why I'm trying to get this done before the end of the year.
But I think y'all can see if we do it now, she doesn't have to put it on the books as a receivable for all of these people and spread it out. We'd like to go ahead and write them the checks and be done with it before June 30th. But we can't do that unless you approve the budget amendment today. Because we don't have any authority to disperse to the fire departments more than what you've authorized.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
So, Mr. Chairman, we would add those under the new business number 3, the budget amendments. Just add them to the other budget amendments.
Yes, sir.
And then my recommendation to you is on Gander Lake, I would just add it under new business as number 4. And that's all the adjustments to the agenda we have, unless someone else had something that you wanted to bring up.
Anyone else got anything?
And then we canceled that public hearing, so.
Yeah, and we canceled that one public hearing.
Okay.
Of course, then we'll have the approval of minutes, and Marcia's enclosed those for you. The special recognition, we've got the employee service pins, and everything's over there ready to go. Appointments, do we go over those now, or do you go over them at 9 o'clock?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock,
Yes, sir.
okay.
Mr. Mayo handled that.
Okay. Unfinished business, the biggest one, of course, is the motion to adopt the budget ordinance for fiscal year 2014-15 for Wayne County. And if you look in the packet at 17 and 40, page 17 and 42, we have a cover memo, which I've given you. There's basically a couple of minor things. We kept the $55,000 in cuts to the IT department. Y'all had asked me to look at that. We would prefer, instead of splitting the telephone system in 2 years, there's some other projects that we could defer really until next year. And so we've done those. Those equal $55,000, so it's a net wash there. On the jail vehicles, Sheriff Pierce strongly believed that he needed 2 additional vehicles, but he agreed to take 2 Chargers instead of 1 Charger and a Tahoe. That's a savings of $10,000 instead of the $56,017. We did discuss this with Commissioner Doherty because this was his proposed cut, and he indicated he was comfortable with that because the sheriff unknown to Joe and I, the sheriff was proposing to use some more money out of this fingerprint and other reserve money for other things, and so he didn't have the money for the second vehicle. You know, originally, we had talked about doing one vehicle and cutting one and letting him get that out of that money, but he didn't have that money. So basically what we're doing there is asking you to put those two vehicles back in, and that's in this amended sheet behind on the second page. The one last change we have is that the Gateway Board basically instructed their director to resign last week as a county employee. And if you recall, they had sent me a letter requesting to be out from under that agreement where she was on our books. And the reason for that was, of course, to get medical insurance and also to be in the North Carolina Local Government Employees Retirement System. The county had done that, and you had a written agreement with them, but either party can get out of that agreement with 60 days' notice. So they basically instructed her to go ahead and resign. She sent me a letter resigning, and then the Gateway Board immediately rehired her as an employee of Gateway directly. And you've all read about the increase in salary that they gave her with that. But what that did to our budget is we removed both the $83,543 expenditure and the offsetting $83,543 reimbursement revenue from Gateway for her salary and fringe benefits. So the net effect there is it reduces the size of the general fund by $83,543. As I say in the memo, everything else is as you talked about it. So the next the list on page 18, you would be the idea is that you would adopt the budget subject to these changes. And these changes have been placed, correct me if I'm wrong, Pam, in their books.
Yes, sir.
So the books that you've gotten back reflect these changes, everything in here that we've just gone over. So if that's acceptable, then we're ready to go with the budget. And when you can adopt the budget. I would say in the motion that it needs to be adopted with the changes as determined by the Board of Commissioners and reference this page, and that those have been incorporated in as the final budget now. Okay? So you're making it clear you're not going with the manager's recommended budget on these line items, you've changed those.
Mr. Doherty.
And these pages indicate the reduction of the 83,000 on that salary. Has that been changed in there as
Pam,
well?
do they?
The budget, it's in your budget book. It is not on this sheet here.
Right, but in the budget book
Yes, sir.
itself, it does.
Yes, sir, they're in there.
Okay, good.
We balanced everything.
So actually, the $530,000, so we can add another 83 to that basically.
613,000 is what it is.
Well, it didn't affect your appropriated fund balance because there was a revenue supporting it.
But it still was a savings.
It still reduced the
It
budget.
reduced the
reduces
budget, but was
size
not
of
a
the budget.
savings.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
6 what now?
Well, it would be the 83,000. Pam, can you do that real quick?
613, 427.
Yes, that's right.
Well, there's a little bit of change on it too, remember, it's 83,543
Oh, okay, yep.
plus
540.
530,427.
Okay, yep.
So it's gonna be almost $614,000.
And Mr. Chairman, if I ask,
Yes, sir.
why would the $40,000 reduction of solid waste not be included in that reduction in overall budget?
Well, it is, but it's a different fund. The first one is the impact on the general fund. The second one is the impact on the solid waste fund. We simply separated them out because they're two different funds. But the aggregate, you could add the 40 into the aggregate
So actually,
amount that
we're
you
at
cut.
653, 970.
653, 970.
We just split those out for purposes of showing it by fund. And they're the only two funds that were affected.
Okay.
So with that, I think everything's good to go. The one other change, as we mentioned, is that we put New Hope W Fire District at 6.3 cent, which we had discussed previously. And if y'all recall, they wanted a higher rate. We agreed that we would give them the rate that was necessary to give them the amount of money they had as two separate departments the prior year. Pam and her staff went through, did that calculation, and we came up with 6.3. So I think everybody should be solid with that. They're not hurting any way at all. And with that, Mr. Chairman, that's everything on the budget. When you do the budget ordinance, I went ahead and threw in the fee schedule again, although we didn't change anything on the fee schedule. But it is an integral part of the ordinance, so I just left that attachment in there. So that's the budget ordinance. Does anybody have any questions or comments on that?
Anyone?
Mr. Dodd.
Don't want to change anything, but I'd just like you to look at something. The other day, I was down in the lobby, and there were a total of 5 security personnel down there at the lobby. And I understand in regards to the armed deputy that is wanted to have that. I think we may be overdoing it there somewhat in regards to personnel. So
Well, now
I
that
just
we're-
asked you to look into
Yeah.
possibly some savings there.
I'll get with Mel, because now that we're gonna have more of the deputies in there, we may be able to cut back on some of the security personnel. Is that what you're talking about?
It is. I mean, I was amazed that we had that. There were more security personnel in the lobby than
Anybody else in the
individuals.
lobby. Yeah. Okay, yeah, we'll take a look at that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else?
Okay, so that's the budget. The next thing is a motion to approve the recommendation for an architectural firm for Wayne County Agricultural Center and authorize the Wayne County Agricultural Committee Chairman and County Manager to negotiate a contract.
I'll take care
I
of
think
that.
Bill will take care of that. He's got everything.
Let's move back up to the budget. Who's gonna make that someone volunteer to make that motion?
Let's ask Mr. Bell down there to make that motion.
Well, I was just
Since
wondering.
it's his budget.
Before we make a motion, I was wondering, we're not gonna go over Joe Doherty's budget? I'll make it.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, we good on that? And Bill's gonna, we're back to the Ag Center, and Bill Pate is gonna handle that, because he's the chairman of that committee. On the consent agenda, we have 2 applications. These are pretty straightforward items. If you look on page 44, you have a memo from David Ward, and he's explaining, these 4 folks, they submitted late applications for the present use value, which, as you know, gives them a discount because of they're in agriculture. So the law allows a waiver of that and allows them to receive it, but because they're late, the Board of Commissioners has to vote on that. And so David and I both are recommending that you give it to them. The next thing, so you have all of those explaining it. Then the next one on page 49 is applications for exemption. This is a request for a property tax exemption submitted by Eastern Chapel Missionary Baptist Church. Again, the same situation. They would have been eligible for the tax exemption, but they filed late. So once again, you can authorize it. The law allows you to authorize it. We think it's the right thing to do that. And so it's your decision whether you authorize it or not. And David and I are both recommending that you do that.
Any questions? Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Mayor.
can I back up one?
Yes, sir.
The Agriculture Committee part, are we gonna be announcing who the top architect?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes. The way we left it was, just to refresh your memory, because I think most of you were here and sat through all the interviews. Then what we did is, Bill had a ranking system. Everybody submitted their forms on a ranking system, and then he aggregated those. And so,
Actually, Noel did it.
Noel did it,
She did it for us, and then
but the bottom line is, we had a ranking system. Everybody who was on the panel submitted their numbers on it in a rank order, and that's the process we're using to select them. And that's what Bill will be going over today.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, under new business, we have a motion to approve inmate health care contract with Southern Health Partners, Inc. As you recall, we asked you to remove this from the agenda 2 weeks ago because Borden had a couple of minor legal issues he wanted to get worked out. We've done that, so we're ready to put it back on the agenda for you. And at this point, I'm going to ask Noel to come up because this is really her project, working with the sheriff on that.
Morning. The staff recommends that the Board of Commissioners approve the contract with Southern Health Partners for inmate health care services in order to decrease our inmate health care services medical cost. We anticipate the contract with Southern Health Partners will save the county approximately $35,000 in health care and medical cost per year, while providing an additional 11 hours a day of nursing care to our inmates. For all inmates over 230, there will be a per diem charge of $1.25 per day charged for each additional inmate. This would cover costs encountered for the increased population, such as pharmacy, necessary nursing hours, insurance, supplies, etc. The cost of the contract for the first year will be $272,400, with a 2% increase the second year and an additional 2% increase the third year, but we can negotiate with them. Southern Health Partners has been working in North Carolina jails for more than 13 years and several other states as well. Currently, they are contracted to manage medical care for inmates in more than 200 county detention and correctional facilities in 13 states. They work in over 50 counties in North Carolina. They come highly recommended by several counties. The staff requests that the Board of Commissioners approve the contract with Southern Health Partners effective September 1, 2014. And I've attached a copy of the contract for your review.
Any questions for Noel?
And Fane should be here, and I'm not sure if the sheriff will be here, but they'll be here in the 9 o'clock meeting.
Just one quick question.
Mr.
I assume the other contract must end August 30th.
It actually, what we gave our person that we're using 90 days, it would have ended June 30th, but we give him 90 days, so it will be September 1.
I just want to make sure there wasn't a gap in there.
Yes.
I knew you guys
We're
would know.
okay. And I don't want to put any pressure on you, but we've already figured the $35,000 savings in the budget.
No pressure.
So,
I suppose, you knew I had a question. I was over here on my calculator. I think the only question I have is this $1.25 per day charge.
That's it. That's if we exceed the 230.
The 230.
He's not going above that because the capacity is 200. So when you see those daily reports, you'll see him get up to, 221, 225 or whatever. And Fane is very aware that 230 is in there, so he'll keep it below that.
Okay.
And farm it out because we're very aware that's in there.
Okay.
But in fairness to the contractor, he had to know that there was a cap to it.
And the 2% automatic increase is pretty standard, or?
It's fairly standard, but we'll go back each year and talk about that.
All right,
But it is fairly standard.
And one last thing, and that is that in additional years out, there are other companies that provide this same service to offer some competition. Am I correct?
Well, we looked into that, and we've actually talked with one other company, but this one far exceeded it as far as what they could do for
Sure,
us and
sure.
the amount of money we could save.
But it's always to have a competition. Keep
Well, and also we
everybody-
talked to several other counties as well, and some of them do the in-house like we had done previously, but most of them do this.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
One of
Chairman.
the nice things about this, just so you know, now, they'll hire local people, but it's their responsibility to get them. One of the hard things to do is to find physicians who want to work in a jail, and the same thing with the nurses. I mean, it's not a great environment to work in, and so you're also transferring that responsibility over to them. So if there is an issue, it's incumbent on them to bring somebody in. And that's one of the advantages of having somebody who has multiple counties, because worst case, they can bring somebody in from a neighboring county on a temporary basis while they're filling the slot. If we kept it ourselves, we wouldn't have that advantage.
And this may not be the time to bring it up, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is also going to eliminate unfortunately, going to eliminate a position.
It does. Under the current contract, we were paying for the nurse. Technically not a nurse, but a medical assistant or something like that. But the person was not an RN or LPN. But that is correct.
We will be partnering with, the company actually is going to partner with our doctor that we previously used. So he will still be working in our jail as a doctor. He will just be employed by them, not us.
Yeah. As far as the other employee, the reason we're aware of that is we looked at the credentials because we were going to try to see if they would also pick her up. But since she's not a nurse, that doesn't fit what they're trying to do and what we're requiring in the contract.
Per this, we will have an LPN or an RN on staff for their duration of their time here, and they'll get an additional 11 hours, where before we had 8 hours of time that was with this person that wasn't an LPN or RN. So, but we also had our doctor that would come in and their RN that would come in from time.
And,
Mr. Kumar.
and just as a information to the public, whenever someone comes into our jail, whatever ailments that they have, the county is responsible for tending to those. And so, as we talk about the dollar figure and what it's for, I just thought it might be worthy to the public know that that's some of the services that's also provided to people, to the general population, regardless of where they are. So
That's correct, and also Fane probably could elaborate on that when he gets here, but we assume all of their health care issues when they step foot in our jail.
thank you, ma'am.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and Noel, if you'll stay up there, page 66 through 87, you have a memo from me talking about the purchasing policy. We want to make two changes in it, one dealing with informal bids, the other with surplus equipment. I'm going to let Noel go over those with you. And then what I have found is, in researching this, is that the purchasing policy was never adopted formally by the Board of Commissioners. It was done administratively, similar to how the personnel policies were done. And my recommendation to you is that ought to be adopted by the Board of Commissioners, and it should only be changed by the Board of Commissioners. And so I'm recommending that we're recommending these two changes, but rather than do them administratively, I would like for you to adopt the purchasing policy by resolution, which you have in here, and that resolution clearly states also it can only be amended by resolution of the Board of Commissioners.
Any questions?
Noel, do you want to go over the two changes? Do you have?
Would you like me to?
Yeah.
The staff recommends the following changes to be made to the Wayne County purchasing policy. On page 8, under informal bids, the following change has been made. All purchases for $1,000 to $2,500 must obtain 3 written quotations from 3 different vendors prior to making the purchase. All vendors are quoting the same item and/or specifications when submitting quotes. The quotes should be kept in a file in each department for a period of 1 year from the date of the related invoice. The Facilities Department will be excluded from this portion of the policy. The Facilities Director will ensure all employees that purchase are doing their due diligence to obtain the best price possible without sacrificing quality or service.
And let me interject here. This is at the request of the Facilities Committee because in discussing this, a lot of the items Milford has to deal with, $2,500 is a small item. And so we're requesting that you do that. And as I told that committee, I have raised the limits on facilities and also fleet management in other jurisdictions because of that very reason. A lot of the parts and things like that, and oftentimes we're in a situation where we need to get the thing fixed immediately. So we're asking that you basically raise that limit for them from $1,000 to $2,500. That's the reason for that.
Sure. Mr. Mayor. And I agree with that. Taking a step further is that we discussed in facilities also that facilities is a little bit different than some of the other departments in the fact that sometimes you only have a sole source to get something repaired. And how are you going to get 3 quotes if there's only one source? You might be able to send it to Alabama or Mississippi, but if it's an emergency situation, you don't have the time to do that. So it's a little bit different being in facilities, and I totally support what we've done here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anything else, Mr. Wood?
The one other item I think was on page 18. If you'll
Yes,
go
sir.
there.
On page 18, under surplus equipment, item number 6 has been changed to read as follows. The county manager has to approve all previous surplus personal property before being sold on GovDeals. All items with a greater value of $5,000 must be brought to the Board of Commissioners for approval.
And the reason for this is actually not a change in policy. It's just that you had done this under a separate resolution. And so we're just incorporating this in so that everything dealing with purchasing is in this manual. So this is not a change in policy. It's just added to the manual.
Mr. Doran?
Going back to the first item there, and I have no problem with that $2,500, but if you run across a situation to where you have only one supplier, you cannot get the additional bids.
Right.
What procedures in here for them to follow through?
Noel can waive the competitive bid requirement.
So that's in here?
It's in here.
Yes, and what
We
we-
have a provision in there called sole source purchases.
Okay.
And we also have one on emergency purchases where I can waive things in an emergency where we've got to move,
Okay.
things like that.
Okay.
So you have your standard policy and then you have these exceptions, because they're going, Ray's absolutely right, that's going to happen.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Noel.
The next order of business would be the budget amendments. Do you want Pam to go over them now or at the meeting?
We'll just wait for the meeting.
Okay. And then we have a closed session. We have several items there that the county attorney and I want to update you on. Then public comments, and the rest of it is just the normal things, county manager's comments, the board's comments. And then, again, you'll adjourn as the Wayne County Board of Commissioners, but then you will have a meeting as the Wayne County Board of Adjustment to handle that communications tower issue.
Okay. It's 8:45. We do need to go into closed session, but if you've got several items to handle in closed session, we've only got 15 minutes, and it takes 5 to get in there and 5 to get out. So, we need to just wait till later on in the meeting to go into closed session.
All right.
Is that all right with the rest of the board?
That's fine.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions or changes that they'd like to make? If not, we will be back at 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock, time to conduct the business of the Wayne County Board of Commissioners. I'd like to ask everyone, if you have a cell phone or a pager, please put it on silent mode or cut it off. Appreciate your consideration in this. Our invocation, Mr. Doherty, would you like to?
Yes,
sir.
If I could introduce, today's invocation will be given by another District 6 minister. Danny Grant Sr. is an associate pastor at Living Word Ministries in Goldsboro. He has been happily married to Debbie Grant for almost 38 years. They have 2 children, Danny and Kimberly. They also have 4 precious grandchildren, Peyton, Riley Cooper, Austin, and Annabeth. Thank you for giving our invocation this morning.
I'd like to thank y'all for the opportunity to be here today. Joe, Ray, Commissioners, thank you so much for this opportunity. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you today, Lord, with humble hearts and thanksgiving in our hearts, Father. Humble hearts because you are the creator of this earth and all things upon it, Father. And thanksgiving, Lord, for everything that you do for each and every one of us, each and every day, Father. Father, we just praise and honor your holy name, Father. Lord, we thank you, Lord, for the governments that you have placed upon this earth, small to great. And Lord, we know that you're in charge of all. And Father, we just ask today, Lord, that you have your wisdom that was as wise as Solomon and place it upon these Board of Commissioners and our place of governments. And Lord, also place understanding. And Lord, we just thank you, Lord, for what you're doing in our country, the United States of America, Lord, where we have freedom to worship you openly, Father. And Lord, we pray for our military men and women. We pray your protection upon each and every one. We pray for all our leaders of our country. And Lord, I pray, though, that many have turned away from you, Lord. Lord, that they will look back upon you, because without you, we cannot survive. And Lord, we just pray your blessings upon this meeting today and all future meetings. And we give you all praise, honor, and glory that you so richly deserve. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Grant. Thank you. Mr. Martin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. We've got some public hearings at 9:15. It's only about 5 past, so we're going down to approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion that we have approval of the minutes for the May 27th to June 3rd meeting of the County Commissioners?
So moved.
Have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor of approving the minutes of the Commissioners meeting, show sign of right hand. Motion carries. All right, the minutes to the Board of Equalization and Review, May the 6th and May the 20th. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor, show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous. Have we got time for service?
I think we could go ahead over the discussion adjustment of agenda if you'd like, before the 9:15.
Okay, all right, discussion, okay. Adjustment to the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, we have 3 additions to the agenda. under new business, we would like to add some budget amendments. It's budget amendment 497 and budget amendment 498. So that would go under new business as part of number 3 for budget amendments. Then we'd like to add under new business is number 4, the Gander Lake Section 1 final subdivision plat, and approval of that plat. And those would be the additions to the agenda.
Cancel the public hearing.
And the first public hearing on here has been canceled at the applicant's request.
The first one is the,
I mean, the
That's the
second one,
second,
I meant,
okay.
yeah, the second one. The proposed amendment for the zoning ordinance is fine. The rezoning, the first rezoning request would be the one you're canceling.
okay,
So it's the middle one on your sheet.
okay. Anyone else have any changes to the agenda? Okay. Do we have time for service pen?
Sure.
Mr. Wood, Marshall, if you would.
You got the names?
Have the one-year pins, and I'm sure you would like the employees present to come and receive their pin and shake the commissioner's hand. 1 year, Nicholas Lancaster, Emergency Services. Ashley Archer, Social Services. Kenya Carmichael, Social Services. Coquina Cooper, Social Services. Holly Harrell, Social Services. Catherine Jones, Emergency Medical Services. Diana McCullen, Day Reporting Center. Omia Smith, Social Services. 5 years, Judy Carmichael, Social Services. Donna Carey, Social Services. Patricia Casey, Detention Center. Shanna Simmons, Emergency Medical Services. Christopher Barnes, Emergency Services. Donika Harris, Social Services. Ellen Riles, Health Department.
Anybody working today?
There must be, on vacation 1. 10 years. Matthew Miller, Sheriff's Office. Renee Smith, Social Services. Jennifer Worrell, Solid Waste. Melanie Harper, Health Department. Luana Horn, Social Services. Ricky Wood, Solid Waste.
Now you go back to work.
You have won the lottery, just go buy $50 million.
I've been working on it. Thank you, sir.
15 years, we have Robert Chun with the Sheriff's Office. Gloria Dixon, Social Services. Connie Smith, Health Department.
Congratulations.
I want to share that lottery with you.
And you law enforcement.
20 years, Betty Scott, Detention Center. And we will make sure that the employees who were unable to attend get their service pins. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just picking on you, Steve.
Lost a little way. They must have moved the table.
I'll wait now.
Do the appointments, you still got 5 minutes. You got 5 minutes to do appointments.
Mr. Chairman, would y'all like to move on to appointments?
That'll be fine. Mr. Mayo,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you turn in about halfway your agenda to page 11, the Goldsboro Wayne Transportation Authority. It's about the middle way of your agenda, but. Yep, there. Everybody good?
nope, not yet.
What page?
Page 11.
Page 11.
It's actually a pencil number, page 11.
Yeah, we working
Just
on
passed
it.
it, right?
Yep,
It's not, there you go.
got it.
We're gonna have to do a separate booklet for everybody, Marshall.
Got it.
Okay. Page 11, the Goldsboro Wayne Transportation Authority. The appointment committee, like to make a motion to appoint Brent Woodrow Heath to the Goldsboro Wayne Transportation Authority. That's in the form of a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a motion on the floor. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Bailey.
Would you ask Mr. Mayo to explain why we're replacing Mr. Gates with this gentleman because of the time frame? So,
Mr. Mayo, would you explain that, please?
Yes, there's two reasons. Number one is that Mr. Gates is, according to the bylaws, cannot be reappointed another term. Number two is that the request is to have Brent Heath put on there as an accountant. It felt like an accountant needed to be on this authority, so that's why the appointment committee is bringing Mr. Heath to this appointment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor, show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous.
And, Mr. Chairman, that's all the appointments we have for today.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are we close enough to, we can have the public? Okay. Public hearings. The first one, proposed amendment to the Wayne County zoning ordinance to allow communications towers as a special use in light industry zone. Anyone have any comments? Chip?
Just go over a little bit. We have a recommendation or asking for communication towers to be added as a special use in the light industry zone. It is currently a permitted use in heavy industry zone as a right. So what this does is allows somebody who has property in a light industry area to ask for a tower, a communications tower, to be constructed as a special use, which means it has to go before the Board of Adjustment and be taken on a case-by-case basis. So we ask that communication towers be added to the light industry zone as a special use. This Wayne County Planning Board had recommended approval of this.
Okay. Any questions, any discussion? Anyone else have any comments to make on the public hearing on the proposed tower site? If no one else has anything to say, do we act on it now?
You have to adjourn the public hearing.
You have to close the public hearing, and then you can act on
Each individual one, or?
it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. If no discussion, do I have a motion that we close the public hearing on
You can
proposed?
just announce it as closed.
Okay. The public hearing is closed. What's the pleasure of the board?
motion to approve.
I have a motion on the floor that we approve the first public hearing. Any questions? If no questions or discussion, all in favor, show of sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous. The second public hearing has been withdrawn. Request to rezone 5413 US Highway 117 North in Pikeville, North Carolina from residential agricultural 20 to community shopping.
Yes,
Please,
sir.
Chip.
The planning department received a petition from Mr. Gary Lee Hinton on behalf of NC Sound to rezone a 2.14 acre lot in the Pikeville Township from residential agricultural 20 to community shopping. Property is owned by Amy Price and is located north of Pikeville along the west side of US 117 Highway. It is currently a vacant office building which was formerly used as a doctor's office. It's currently on the property. The property is bordered on the east by a house, on the north by farmland, on the west by the CSX Railroad, and on the south by an animal hospital. Property is located within the zoning area surrounding Charles B. Aycock High School, and is approximately 160 feet southwest of the school property. Property on all sides is zoned RA20. The site was built prior to the zoning being in place, and it is currently would be an existing non-conforming use, and this would bring the property into being a conforming use, as office space is allowed in community shopping, but not in RA20. The planning board recommended that the rezoning request be approved following the required public hearing. Public notice of the adjoining property owners were mailed, a sign was posted, and it was advertised in the local newspaper.
Anyone else have any comments on the public hearing for rezoning the property in Pikeville? If none, the public hearing is closed.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Mayor.
I make a motion that we accept as this zoning request as recommended by the planning board.
I have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? If no discussion, all in favor show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous. All right, we've skipped about, I guess we're down to new business, right?
Unfinished business.
Unfinished.
Unfinished, I'm sorry. Unfinished business. First item on unfinished business is motion to adopt the budget ordinances for fiscal year 2014-2015 for Wayne County, for the county of Wayne, North Carolina. Mr. Wood, is there anything you need to discuss on that, or?
Just as we said at the 8 o'clock briefing, the changes that you requested are in the book now, so if you make a motion to adopt the budget ordinance that is in your packet, it has the changes incorporated in it. But I would ask that you make that clear in the motion that this is with the changes as approved by or as requested by the board. And that way it makes it very clear that you meant to have those changes in there.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the budget ordinance as submitted with the necessary changes that are requested by the Board of Commissioners as of today.
That's sufficient? Yes. Okay. I have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? Mr. Doherty.
Just a comment. My fellow board members and our county manager, and finance department, I just want to say just how pleased I am with this entire process. It was just so much smoother this time. There was not any wailing and gnashing of teeth, and I think we got through it very quickly. But also, I think that this board has done its due diligence in regards to reducing every dollar we could on this budget, and actually indicated by a savings of $653,970. And those dollars are important because these are tax dollars that are coming in from our citizens, and I just think we've just done I think we need a pat on the back here for a great job that this board's done and our county manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Doty. Anyone else? I would like to comment also that I appreciate what Mr. Wood and the Finance Department has done, and not only the Finance Department, I mean, all of the staff, everyone that was involved, down to the department heads. I mean, we had department heads to come in and voluntarily take some items off that they wanted, but they absolutely didn't have to have. And I want to commend all of the department heads and the county manager and the finance department and everyone that was involved. Because like Mr. Doty said, this has been a real smooth process, very few changes made, and we were able to keep the tax rate at the same, and only got to dip into the fund balance just a very minimum, and I just want to commend everyone that has done it, because all we're doing today is voting on it. The staff did the work, and I just want to thank you. All right, anyone else have anything? All right, we have a motion on the floor. If no other discussion, all in favor of adopting the budget, show sign of the right hand. Motion carries unanimous. Unfinished business, motion to approve recommendation for an architectural firm for Wayne County Agricultural Center and authorize the Wayne County Agricultural Committee Chairman and the county manager to negotiate a contract. Mr. Pate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And before I go into that, I just want to thank Kevin Johnson for putting out some interesting data that the news artist has already written an article on, and you did a great job, Steve, by the way. But, you know, the big part of it is the agricultural impact in Wayne County. Last time we had a update from Dr. Walton from NC State, it was at $763 million for the economic impact. That now has moved to $949 million economic impact yearly in Wayne County. Folks, that's huge. It is, and it goes to show the growth and the importance of agriculture, agribusiness to Wayne County and its sister counties in this region. And we have to recognize that, and we have to move forward and continue to educate not only our children about agribusiness, but our farmers, and it's just huge business. Anyway, so in the meantime, we have continued to move forward with our agricultural regional center that we were interested in putting together. And we had asked 5 firms, we had narrowed it down to 5 firms to come in to give us a presentation for the scope of work on phase 1, right? Okay, I'm trying to remember exactly how you put that. And the facilities sub-chair, everybody was here. Myself, Julian Aycock, Vice Chair, Kevin Johnson, and Eddie Petzler, Greg Shepard, and Kent Yever from the state. We had several county commissioners also here in attendance. The presentations by the groups, the architectural groups, was just fantastic. Each and every one gave a great presentation, and it was a very, very difficult decision. We used a rate on the 1 through 5, and then we had Ms. Woods to tally up the scores. And like anything else in any kind of competition, there has to be somebody who has to be selected. Therefore, I would like to make a recommendation to this board to accept HH Architecture for the Wayne County Regional Agriculture Center and to authorize the Wayne County Committee Chairman and the County Manager to negotiate a contract, and that is in the form of a motion, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion on the floor. Any discussion or questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Mayor.
I was, even though I'm not on the board, I was part of the process of hearing the architects. It was a tough job. Any one of the 5, I believe, could have done a commendable job. But as Commissioner Pate said, we had to pick one, and the one that is picked, I believe, is the right one for this project. So I appreciate what the Ag Board has done and all others. This looks like a reality, a lot more than it did 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. So I appreciate your hard work, Commissioner Pate, also. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Doherty.
I too sat in on that presentation, and I applaud the committee's action and decision. And I look forward to the young lady's enthusiasm in this project, because she was definitely enthusiastic about it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Doty. Anyone else? I'd also like to comment that I was at the presentation, and as Mr. Payton, Mr. Mayo, and Mr. Doty has said, any one of the 5 firms could have done the job. I mean, they all give an excellent presentation, and it was quite refreshing to know that we do have the professionals in the area that have the expertise to do something like this. But you know, one was just a tad better than the other, so that's the one that the committee is recommending. But it was a great presentation. If no one else has any comments to make, all in favor of the motion, please show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Consent agenda,
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Doherty.
I move that we accept the consent agenda.
I have a motion on the floor that we accept the consent agenda. Any discussion? If no discussion, all in favor, show sign of right hand. Consent agenda is approved, unanimous.
And we're moving right along.
Don't get too comfortable.
Moving on to new business. First item, motion to approve inmate health care contract with Southern Health Partners Incorporated. I think the sheriff is here, Mr. Greenfield's here, and Ms. Noel Woods will present that to the board, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The staff recommends that the Board of Commissioners approve the contract with Southern Health Partners for our inmate health care services in order to decrease our medical cost. We anticipate the contract with Southern Health Partners will save the county approximately $35,000 in health care and medication costs per year, while providing an additional 11 hours a day of nursing care to our inmates. For all inmates over 230, there will be a per diem charge of $1.25 per day charged on each additional inmate. This would cover the cost encountered for the increase in population, such as pharmacy, necessary nursing hours, insurance, and supplies, etc. The cost of the contract for the first year will be $272,400, with a 2% increase the second year and an additional 2% the third year, but we can negotiate. Southern Health Partners has been working in North Carolina jails for over 13 years and several other states as well. Currently, they are contracted to manage medical care for inmates in more than 200 county detention and correctional facilities in 13 states. They work in over 50 counties in North Carolina. They come highly recommended by several counties. The staff requests that the Board of Commissioners approve the contract for Southern Health Partners effective September 1st, 2014, and I have attached their contract for your review.
Sheriff, you need to make any comments, Mr. Greenfield?
We reviewed this contract, Ms. Noel and Major Greenfield, myself, and we just feel like it is a savings to the taxpayer, and it also will be more efficient for our jail operations, and so I'd like to endorse this also.
You good, Mr. Greenfield? Okay, you've heard the recommendation from Ms. Woods and the sheriff. Any discussion? Or do I have a motion?
Motion to approve, Mr.
I
Chairman.
have a motion on the floor. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Doherty.
Sheriff, if I can commend you for a little thing here called More with Less.
Thanks, sir.
And that's exactly what this is, because it's actually providing more service at less cost. So it saves the taxpayer, the local taxpayers, it saves them approximately $35,000 a year. And so I just wanted to applaud you for it. I think y'all have worked hard to to find this. From my understanding, you're actually providing an additional 11 hours of healthcare service to the inmates.
That is correct.
So it's a big move in the right direction. And so I just wanted to applaud you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion?
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, I
Yes,
do
sir.
want to commend Dr. McCaskill for the service he has given Wayne County, and he's gone beyond the call of duty in his services. This is just a bigger organization that we're dealing with, and feel like we can provide better and more efficient service. But Dr. McCaskill has been an excellent service to, given excellent service to Wayne County.
Anyone else? If not, I have a motion on the floor. All in favor of the motion, show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous. Thank y'all. Second item on new business, motion to approve Wayne County Purchasing and Procedures Manual. Ms. Wood, please. And Mr. Wood.
And that's no relation.
There's an S difference.
That's right. The staff recommends the following changes to be made to the Wayne County purchasing policy. On page 8, under informal bids, the following change has been made. All purchases for $1,000 to $2,500 must obtain 3 written quotations from 3 different vendors prior to making the purchase. All vendors are quoting the same item and or specifications when submitting quotes. The quotes should be kept on file in each department for a period of 1 year from the date of the related invoice. The Facilities Department will be excluded from this portion of the policy. The Facilities Director will ensure all employees that purchase are doing their due diligence to obtain the best price possible without sacrificing quality or service. Do you have any questions on that one?
Any questions? Mr. Mayor.
As mentioned in 8 o'clock, I certainly concur with what is happening here as far as facilities, because facilities is in a little different area than say purchasing of office supplies or things like that. Not that there's a difference here, but there is from the standpoint that some of our facilities, we only have single sourcing that we can go to get repairs, like on some of the pumps that we rebuild and some other things. So it gives our facilities right there a little bit of leeway to get it done, especially if it's an emergency. There are policies in place that will handle an emergency probably more efficient. Well, it will be more efficiently now than ever before. So I just concur on what you've done, and thank you so much for making that change. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before we get any more questions, do I have a motion that we?
I have one more change.
You have one more change? Okay,
Yes,
go
sir.
ahead.
On page 18, under surplus equipment, item number 6 has been changed to read the following. The county manager has to approve all previous surplus personal property before being sold on GovDeals. All items with a greater value of $5,000 must be brought to the Board of Commissioners for approval. Any questions?
Any questions on that one?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Darby?
I move that we approve the Wayne County Purchasing and Procedures Manual as recommended by the staff.
I have a motion on the floor. Any other discussion or questions?
Just
Mr. Pate.
comment, do we need to add with the changes that were made?
With the changes that are made.
Anyone else? No other discussion? All in favor, show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Wood. Budget amendments, Ms. Hope.
The budget amendments I bring before you today are to do estimations for anticipated revenues and expenditures through June 30th. As the finance director in the finance office, we are trying to make sure that we have all line items budgeted and not overspent, so we are doing some estimations with these budget amendments. Number 460 is to increase the transfer to the school sales tax reserve fund, $235,000, and we are anticipating additional sales tax revenue. This is a subsidiary fund of our general fund that is reserved for the schools, which we appropriate $2 million for capital outlay maintenance, and the remaining balance is used to pay future debt.
You've heard Ms. Holt's recommendation on the budget amendment. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion on the floor. Any discussion?
Just a quick question.
Mr. Daugherty.
When I see that, am I understanding that actually we have received more revenue from sales tax than what we had budgeted?
Yes, sir. Now, the sales tax is just coming in today, so we are actually thinking this 235 will be just a little bit high. But yes, sir, we are getting a little more sales tax. And to make you feel a little better about next year's budget, it is trending up a little bit right now. So hopefully that trend will continue the next 12 months. And I'll be before you again.
And those funds are actually just being set aside for the schools?
Yes,
is that
sir.
correct? Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion on any other discussion? I have a motion on the floor. All in favor, show sign of right hand. Budget amendment 460, pass unanimous.
Budget amendment number 462 is for the health department. It's for breast and cervical cancer control program. It's to increase the revenue by $12,750 and to increase the expenditure, and this is all grant funds. This is through June 30th.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Daugherty.
I move approval of Budget Amendment 462.
I have a motion on the floor for budget 462. Any discussion? If no discussion, all in favor show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous.
Number 464 is to increase revenue for concealed weapons and fingerprinting that have been received by the Sheriff's Department and the associated appropriation.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Bates.
I move we approve Budget Amendment 464.
I have a motion on the floor that we approve budget 464. Any discussion? If no discussion, all in favor show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous.
Budget amendment number 466 is to increase donations $500. This is for the library, is to anticipate and appropriate donations received from the Pikeville Walmart for the 2014 Pikeville Branch Summer Reading Program.
Motion to approve,
$500.
Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion on the floor to approve budget amendment 466. Any discussion? If no discussion, all in favor of budget amendment 466, show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous.
Number 467, this is a much-needed budget amendment. This is to transfer funds received from Progress Energy to the expenditure account in the Services on Aging Department to purchase fans in this very hot week.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Camardi.
I move that we approve.
I have a motion on the floor that we approve budget 467. Any discussion? If no discussion, all in favor show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous.
Number 471 is for Register of Deeds. It's to anticipate and obligate fees collected by the Register of Deeds office in order to pay the portion due to the state of North Carolina, $48,500. This is also showing that the economy is picking up a little bit.
Pleasure of the board.
I move adoption.
I have a motion on the floor that we adopt budget amendment 471. Any discussion? If no discussion, all in favor show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous.
Number 475, Services on Aging. With new gateway rates, medical ride cost has skyrocketed, and this is needed to pay the April bill. This is increasing medical rides by $66,010 and decreasing general rides by $6,010.
Pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion on the floor that we approve Budget Amendment 475. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Camardi?
With respect to the comments that the medical rides have skyrocketed, is this rate still being figured at $3.82 per person per mile?
For this budget amendment, it is, that rate is in effect through June 30th. And it's changing July 1 to 315, I believe.
It's either 310 or 215.
310.
310 or 315?
Yeah, and we'll confirm that for you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Darling? Or Mr. Mayo? Which one? Somebody on that end.
Somebody, yes,
Okay, Mr. Mayo.
But I'm next.
You're next.
As
Mr.
a matter
Mayo.
of fact, the question was just answered, so we are looking at the changing these rates.
Right, there's roughly a 19% reduction. I believe it's 310, but I'll confirm that for you today.
But the increase was a lot more than that.
It was approximately 200, a little over 200%.
That's correct.
So 19% is not going to really help that much.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying. So I'm just saying that it's falling back on us, the taxpayers of Wayne County, and of course the city to pay for this extra. So I appreciate what's being done to look into this, because ultimately our citizens may be the ones that suffer from this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Darling?
Hard to put a handle on this. For this bill, it's $3.82 per mile. And the prior rate, prior to the increase, was $1.
It wasn't a per mile
It was
rate.
$8 a trip.
$8 a
Oh,
trip.
right, it was $8 a trip.
Yeah.
So, so basically, if it's 10 miles to Mount Olive, it'd be about 80 cents. So we went from 80 cents to $3.80. Well, it is what it is, I suppose, but that just seems awful high.
Mr. Chairman.
As such, and it was going to be reflected here, because this is the April bill. Is that
This is the
correct?
April bill.
Where is the
At
May and June bill?
the last response, conversation I had, they had not received those bills.
They-
Unless they've received them in the last week.
You said they.
The Senior Services on Aging.
Who had not received the bill?
Services on Aging.
Has not received a bill from
Gateway.
Gateway. But now, they could have received them from now, so I don't need us to, I mean, we would need to follow up on that, see if those bills are over there now. Is that your understanding too, Mr.?
Yes, that's right.
Mr. Wood?
So they'll,
What?
Oh, go ahead.
Mr. Darling, let's.
I'm
Mr.
sorry,
Darling, and we'll get to y'all.
am I understand that Gateway is just now billing for April?
They have billed for April. As far as I know, they have not billed for May, but I mean, they could have received them now. That was the last word I've got, but I haven't, and like I said, I would have to get an update on that.
I understand. I'm sorry. Let me not get too much into Gateway. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bell?
Just for information purposes, under the old rates that the Gateway was charging, they operated at a loss for all those years. They have never been paid enough money in order to have a profit. So, you know, they had to do something in order to create some revenues to operate the system the way it's being dictated by the State Transportation Department to operate. Not only that, the grants that they get to operate Gateway, sometimes they be 6 and 8 months late coming in. So there's a lot of entities involved in Gateway. I mean, it's pretty easy to sit up here and condemn Gateway for the way they operate, not knowing all the details. I think what this Board of Commissioners need to do is go over and sit down with the Gateway people and get a complete professional idea of how Gateway operates, where the money comes from, and how it operates totally. And then we can make better decisions up here as far as what Gateway is all about.
Mr. Camardi?
Well, and thank you, Mr. Bell, because that lends itself to, I think, hopefully, what can happen We know that there are some works and there's some figures been laid out on the table as to how this process could be maybe brought in line to bring everybody's satisfaction closer to the table. Obviously, $8 for a trip to Mount Olive, which amounts to about 80 cents, I believe you said, maybe 80 cents per mile. And that's not gonna run one of those buses. Yeah, certainly won't bring that truck I have from Mount Olive for that, so I'm familiar with what it takes to get here. But I would ask, and I know our county manager's working on it, but I would just ask all the entities involved, as Mr. Bell said, to get to the table and see what the real cost is, and not for anyone to try to recoup all that, like I heard Mr. Bell say before, that hadn't been contributed. We can't recoup it all in 1 year. But I would ask publicly for our side of the table and everyone else involved to sit down at the table and see how those figures can be brought in line so that we can recoup, manage things and bring it back up into the black out of the red, but not put it in a position so that it puts the service for the aging in a position that is not well for anyone and doesn't take the services away from anyone. So we all know that there's got to be a place someplace where we can all agree. And I would not want to compare, but I'll only reference recent past. There was a great distance between what County Commissioners thought and the school board thought. After a lot of work, I believe everybody's satisfied that we can move forward without there being a financial burden on anyone. So let's see if we can't get to the table with a good groups of folk and let's get this done.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Anyone else? I have no other discussion. I have a motion on the floor for Budget Amendment 475. All in favor, show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimously.
Your next budget amendment is number 480. It's for EMS. It is to decrease the collection agency line item 4,000, increase utilities 4,000, maintenance and repairs vehicles 15,000, and vehicle supplies we're decreasing 15. This one is coming before you because it's over the $5,000 limit, and they're trying to pay out some of their bills for the end of the year. But they need these line items.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I was going to move to approve.
I have a motion on the floor that we approve Budget Amendment 480. Any discussion? If no discussion, all in favor, show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimously.
Budget Amendment number 482 is to record special adoptions funds received during 13-14. These are grant funds, increasing the grant line item by $24,000 and the associated expenditure.
Pleasure of the board.
I move we approve.
Have a motion on the floor. We approve Budget Amendment 482. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor, show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimously.
Number 483 is for the Department of Social Services. It's to increase administrative revenue grant line item by $5,740.12 and to increase expenditure for Progress Energy, Energy Neighbor $4,364.60 and Share the Warmth $1,375.52.
Pleasure
No
of the
county
board.
funds.
I move we approve.
I have a motion on the floor that we approve Budget Amendment 483. Any discussion? If no discussion, all in favor show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimously.
Number 484 is to anticipate a donation made to the Services on Aging for $1,000 and to increase programs supplies $1,000.
Pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion on the floor. We approve Budget Amendment 484. Any discussion? If no discussion, all in favor of Budget Amendment 484, show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimously.
Budget amendment number 488 is our fire department budget amendment as our estimations through the end of the year, June 30th. In total, it's $235,679.09. These are for taxes that we have collected for the fire departments, and we will be paying them out through June 30th.
Pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
I move adoption of 488.
I have a motion on the floor that we adopt budget amendment 488. Any discussion?
Ms. Holt, as I'm seeing here, these budget amendments come to a total of, $235,679.09.
Yes, sir.
But a good bit of that is actually because of the vehicle tax additional revenues
It
that
is-
were not budgeted?
Yes, sir, that is correct, and it's also delinquent taxes that we have collected, that we don't budget for delinquents. Also, our delinquents are higher this year on the vehicle taxes as they are for Wayne County also, and so they will not be that high next year.
And one of the reasons that we've found that the delinquent receipts are higher is because of the new billing process,
That's
where you've
correct.
got to pay your taxes before you can get your tags.
Yes, sir.
And that includes any delinquent taxes, is that correct?
That is correct.
So
So
these
it's a
are
catch-up period.
unanticipated revenues.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Mayor?
you brought up during the 8 o'clock session, I believe, that there's a small amount of this that's actually going to the fire department, right? Of this 230.
That's two different budget amendments. This
Oh,
is
it
all
is?
the fire departments.
That's another one?
That's a walk-on we're fixing to get to.
Okay.
Yeah, this was the big one.
This is the big one, okay. All right, thank you.
Any other discussion? No other discussion. I have a motion on the floor. We adopt the budget amendment 488. All in favor, show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous.
The next budget amendment is number 489, and that is for the Sheriff's Department, is to increase vehicles 15,345 and to decrease concealed weapons line item 15,345. This is just moving between line items, using concealed weapon funds.
Pleasure of the board.
I move adoption, Mr.
I
Chairman.
have a motion on the floor. We adopt budget amendment 489. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor, show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous. I think we have a couple of add-ons.
Yes, sir. Number 497 is a walk-on. It's for the Social Services Department. It is to increase, to adjust 4B and 4E Adoption Assistance Program expenditures to cover the drafts that they have had through the end of the fiscal year, and they're decreasing a line item by $10,699.21. And the reason this is before you is because it's above $5,000.
Pleasure of the board.
I move we adopt.
Have a motion on the floor. We adopt budget amendment 497. Any discussion? If no discussion, all in favor, show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous.
And number 498, Mr. Mayor, this is one we were talking about. I will
Oh.
ask David Ward to step forward for this when we had a little bit of discussion this morning at 8 o'clock, but I'm going to let him kind of give you the history on it, and then we'll talk about any questions you have. And Alan, I didn't see you up there.
Gentlemen, what happened back in '06, the legislature increased on delinquent registered motor vehicle bills. The first month's interest was 2%. They increased that to 5%. The additional 3% that was collected by the counties went to a fund to actually pay for the new tag and tax system. Now that that's in place and running and working, they've actually collected considerable more money than it took to build that, so now they're refunding that to the counties, and then we have to distribute it to these cities, fire districts, et cetera. So the actual additional 3% is where this refund, this money's coming back to the counties at.
Okay, and the refund is, for Wayne County is $217,341.16.
Total
That's
amount.
the total for everyone, all
That's-
municipalities and fire districts and Wayne County.
But we're just acting on what's going back to the fire districts today, but the bulk of this money went to the county and to the municipalities. So only a small percentage of it is actually going to the fire departments.
Yes, sir, this budget amendment's for $9,224.08, and that's the fire department's portion. We will be writing checks to all municipalities for their portion also.
Any other? What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion on the floor that we approve budget amendment 498. Any discussion? No other discussion. All in favor, show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Holt, David, Alan.
Thank you.
Item number 4 on new business, to add on Gander Lake subdivision. Chip, if you would handle that, please. Yes, sir.
Okay, we have Gander Lake subdivision, section 1, it's a final. Owner developers Goose Lake Development LLC and Rudolph Hooks. Surveyor is Triangle Civil Works. It's located in the Buckswamp Township on the Pikeville-Princeton Road, near the county line. It consists of 30 lots. This is, section is for lots 1 through 30. It is on the north side of Pikeville-Princeton Road at the Johnston County line. It is not within a zoned area. It is within a rural enclave area on the growth strategy map for Wayne County. It will have 30 lots that will front on 3 new streets. None of the lots will have direct access to Pikeville-Princeton Road. 2 streets will provide access to Pikeville-Princeton, and it is currently vacant land in Woodsland. It will be serviced by Charles B. Aycock High School, Norwayne Middle, Northwest Elementary. Water service will be provided by Northwest Wayne Sanitary District. It's within the Little River Fire Department. Be serviced by EMS Station 2. It is within the Eastern Carolina RPO area for transportation planning. Water supply watershed is within the Little River Protected Area. It is not within a voluntary ag district. There are no wetlands present, and it is within Board of Commissioners District 1. The Wayne County Planning Board recommends that the plat be approved as presented.
You've heard the presentation from Chip. What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion on the floor that we approve Gander Lake subdivision plot, section 1. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Have a motion on the floor. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Mayor.
as the 8 o'clock session, this is just part of a much larger subdivision. Do you remember how many lots is in this whole that we approved?
Not off the top of my head, I do not.
It's in the 200 range.
That's what I was thinking. And having said that, I just want to caution all of us that that area is and has been a growth area for Wayne County, that we need to just keep an eye on our schools, our sanitary districts, our fire departments, EMS, all the services that we provide. We probably need to start paying more attention, because the economy is beginning to rebound slightly, and that is a popular area as far as our part of the county, just as a matter of information. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anyone else? I'd also like to comment and agree with Commissioner Mayo. We're potentially we're looking at, this subdivision has been in the planning stages for a long time, back to when I was on the planning board. And we are looking at, 198, 200. And it is really going to tax the school system. I mean, my understanding is that the price range of these homes are in the starter range.
It would be my guess.
And in starter range homes, there's children involved. So Mr. Mayor is correct. It's going to really put a tax on the 3 schools that's servicing it. I think probably our fire department will be okay. EMS is going to put more on them. But Ms. Mayo's right. We've got to start looking at things like this.
Just a question.
Mr. Kamani.
Over time, with subdivisions coming in like this, and looking at the overtime population of the school system, do you see this as people coming from out of the state moving here, or people within the county moving around? Because as we talk about looking down the road at schools and what brick and mortar would be needed, I'm just would like for us to wonder out loud if it's moving around with inside the county, or is it coming from external?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of all of it. I think maybe you got some commuter with this subdivision like this on our western boundary. You probably have some commuter, people who are moving here to live, commuting out of our county to work. You probably have some Air Force personnel that are moving into these areas that like a more rural area. When the preliminaries come in, they are sent to the Board of Education, other agencies for their review and comments. So there are other agencies, you know, the interested parties do review this at the preliminary stage before it's approved. So they are aware that this type of development is occurring. The school system is, you know, the Division of Transportation, they look at these plans. You know, at some point in time down the road, you ask a question about a turn lane. At this particular time, they may not require a turn lane, but once they come in with a Section 2 or a Section 3, at some point in time, they may require improvements out on Pikeville-Princeton Road that would necessitate turn lanes or, you know, some type of facility there. But they are included in the preliminary review stage.
Well, I would like to follow up just with one request to our county manager, and this is not talking about tomorrow project, but I know in some earlier discussions that we've had with you, you talked about how in the previous situations, how you plan for budget increases and expenditures over time. And that's the reason I asked the question about the overall population of increases, flat, moving around, or is it at some increase? Watching television, you look at the big weight counties and so forth, they have had a massive increase in the influx of people, which caused them to have to go to brick and mortar. So I asked the question, is our brick and mortar concerns now and in the future related to moving around inside the county or coming from outside? That's the reason I asked that question. And Mr. Manager, I would just want us to look closely at requests over time and in the future, and for future boards, that we will look at that number of actual increases versus moving around, and then we might have to plan, ask powers to be to plan for how that may be handled.
Right. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bell.
Just for information purposes, deciding about where to build school, that's a school board thing. We don't have to, as a Board of Commissioners, worry about that too much, because the school board keeps track of where the people located, who's there. They know the numbers. They know whether or not there are new people moving in, or whether or not they're just people moving from south to the north. So we don't have to worry about this particular development, because that's not our role to play.
Mr. Chairman. Just a minute, Mr. Manager. I understand, Mr. Bell, and I don't think that our intent is to tell the school board what to do or whatever. I'm thinking about funding. I mean, it's got to be funded by taxpayers. And, but I don't want anybody to get the impression that we were trying to tell the school board what to do. You're exactly right. This is their responsibility, but there again, it's our responsibility to fund, and ultimately it's going to be the burden of the taxpayers.
I think one of the things you can look at is a process of doing some long-term capital planning with the school board, and that would take all of this into account, because as you say, you've got to look at where the population is growing, if there is an impact. And Mr. Cromartie makes a good point. There is a population growth, but then you also have to look at what the school-age population growth is. And my understanding in this county, it's been relatively flat for several years. Of course, it's been relatively flat in a lot of places because of the lack of growth in the last few years. But you can certainly do that through some joint planning with them, their staff and our staff, and then perhaps have a joint meeting of the two boards and go over that kind of information. And the other thing you can look at is the utilization of each and every school. In other words, you look at the capacity that exists within each school. How many students could it accommodate? How many students are actually in it based on the official attendance, which comes out, I believe, every September. It's usually about, I think they call it the 20-day attendance line. You take whatever the 20th day is, they figure most of the transfers in and out of schools have taken place, and that's used as the official population for school attendance for that year. And you can look at those numbers, compare that school by school with what the capacity is. And typically what you'll find is there'll be some schools that may be somewhat crowded, there'll be others that may not be. And then before you spend a great deal of money on bricks and mortars, I think you should give serious consideration to what strategies you could use to better match the attendance lines with the capacities. Now, that's a difficult issue for everybody, but when you start talking about, you see what schools cost today, you may want to look at that. And just to give you an example, we did that in the county I left, and we had one school that was almost at 100% capacity. Fortunately, the elementary school next door to it was at 65% capacity. So rather than build onto a school, really the answer to that is move one attendance line. Not every attendance line in the county, but you move one attendance line between those two schools, and you can average that out. It probably averages out to now both of them are at 80% capacity, and the taxpayers didn't pay a dime for that.
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Mayor.
I agree with Chip. Most of what I've seen on the county line is commuters, Raleigh, Cary. People like to come to Wayne County because obviously the properties and the living is cheaper. It gives them some country living, so to speak. You can't find it in Wake County anymore. But I wanted to just say that my comments about caution was only that. And the reason I'm asking and saying that is that last year, for example, we're seeing this growth in these subdivisions. And yes, we have been flatlined as far as attendance in our schools, but here's the key. Northwest Elementary has 15 mobile home classrooms. And what I'm saying is that, and I'm just making a comment, we need to start looking at that now and not later. That's all I'm asking. So that's my comment, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Kamar.
Well, and the reason that I brought what I said in the original interview with our county manager, that was one of the things that he talked about was the process which he explained, and I wanted for public record for us to hear what that planning process was and how it was evolved. And it certainly didn't have anything. I never assumed that it had anything to do with micromanaging what the school system do, except just to have a broader plan so that the needs for this county met the amount of dollars that was in the county to provide those kinds of things. So I think we're here.
Well, my motion is a moot point there. I was going to make a motion before we got in trouble that would go ahead and call the question. However, I do call the question.
I have one more hand.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Bell.
I just want to say this, as far as the school growth and everything goes, we have less students today than what we had 10 years ago, just for information purposes.
Thank you. I've got a motion on the floor that we call to vote. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, Chip.
Yes, sir.
It is about 10 public comment section. Public comment section is open. Ask that you limit your comments to 4 minutes. If anyone has any comments at this time, please come forward, state your name and address.
Just say it ought to be 2 minutes.
Tom Drew, P.O. Box 587, Goldsboro, North Carolina, 27533. First thing is a pop quiz for this board. I've long stated There is a plan to begin stabilizing and turning the suicide crisis around in 30 days on a shoestring budget. Earlier this year, during public comment, I did share that idea. That's not something to sit on and not express what it is. Is there anyone on this board that can explain from recall what I did share?
Mr. Chairman,
Uh,
just ask the, Mr. Gruder to make his statements and not question us about
Well,
his previous comment.
This pop quiz leads into what I'm getting ready to address next. There was to be 2 educational endeavors in Wayne County. One, SOS workshop on suicide, another workshop, East Point's teen suicide prevention. As a citizen reporter, I seek to do proactive, interactive, and reactive reporting on education and suicide prevention. Being as a citizen reporter since '01, November 4th of '01, I've stated that there's neither suicide prevention specialist or the training for one. Did arrive at both of those workshops with this sign, the plan in hand to help stabilize and turn that crisis around in 30 days. The opportunity to share what that is, as I did share with y'all, basically to secure the forum on this topic, a mailbox and a copier. Welcome anyone and everyone who has any opinion, question, suggestion on that topic to share those ideas. And within 30 days, every hotline worker, when they're not answering a phone, has some valuable information to review. And but if there is neither a suicide prevention specialist or the training for one, the last East Point's teen suicide prevention workshop is in question. I did proactive. One thing, it was scheduled from 5:30 to 6:30, and sought proactively why that was so short a time as far as the library, and the understanding received from the library that that room, the Wheel Auditorium, could have been utilized till 8:30. It began right at about 5:30, and right at 6:30 it was concluded. Fortunately, there was an opportunity for one to ask a question at the end, and I did ask the spokesperson who gave the presentation, where does she go for healthy, in-depth, open discussion of the information she shared that night? I did not get an answer. As in education, as in journalism, there's 4 diamond rules: date, sign, define, and debate your words. And as I addressed that person, if there was debatable information shared that night, quality oversight in education on suicide prevention, where one would go for open discussion with that person on those matters. That was not provided. 30 seconds. Leave it right there.
Thank you, Mr. Drew. Anyone else have any public comments? No other public comments. Public comment session is closed. Okay, do we want to go into closed session now, or go ahead with your comments and
I think it'd be good to go now.
go into closed session now?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Daugherty.
I move that we go into closed session for
To consult with attorney employed and retained by you to serve as attorney-client privilege, and to establish your policy with respect to purchasing some land.
Have a motion on the floor, we go into